I work for the James Randi Educational Foundation. My title is Outreach Coordinator, but there are a lot of things that I do in my job, and by far the most pleasurable is getting to hang out with James Randi. I often go on trips with Randi, I go to lectures with Randi. I try to make sure that there are no technical glitches. I try to make sure that we always start on time, and I try to make sure that the room is packed. So 1 out of 3. But James Randi has been a very important figure in my life. He was really, truly the first person who I ever saw on TV. I saw him on the Johnny Carson show because I was a big nerd, and I got old episodes of Johnny Carson on video checked out from the library because I was a big comedy geek, and James Randi was on several of those, and I remember seeing his exposé of Peter Popoff, which we're going to see later on. Thankfully, now the video works. And it really did change my life. He was the first person that made me realize that there were other people in the world who sometimes said, you know what, I think this is crap. I think this person is completely wrong about something. So it's a great privilege and a pleasure to get to work with Randi. He and I do a show for the JREF on YouTube called The Randi Show, where I get to interview him, and it's kind of the thing that we're going to be doing today. So, ladies and gentlemen, magician, escape artist, skeptic, Mr. James Randi.
Yes, my name is James Randi. I'm guilty as charged. And we have some bits of video that we're going to show you or to illustrate our point here this evening. But I will start by saying that, yes, it's sort of redundant and it's trite, but I have great delight in being at Dragon Con. This is only the second one that I've attended. I was here 2 years ago, wasn't able to make it last year. I was somewhere else in the universe. And the reason that I like Dragon Con so very much is I see people that don't really fit well with the rest of society. I'm serious about that. These are people who are sort of out on their own. They pretty well live at a keyboard, and they're in contact with other people of similar mind and similar tastes, and all of that's just fine. But when Dragon Con comes along, they come to Atlanta, and they infest, I know they inhabit the hotels, as you know. They pretty well take over Atlanta, and I think Atlanta is very happy about that too, because it's a privilege to have such lovely folks here. These are people who do associate with one another much easier than they do with most of the rest of the world. And my very first experience at Dragon Con 2 years ago, I got into a high altitude elevator, you know what I mean. And I was going down to the main floor to have breakfast, and I found myself with a security guard there. And from the badge that he had, it was all kinds of stars and oak leaves and things like that, so I knew he was rather high-ranking. And I said, "You folks must have quite a job managing these folks." He looked at me and said, "Oh, no, au contraire." So he was very well educated. He said, "No, we don't have any trouble with these folks at all. First of all, they don't misbehave themselves in a way that is objectionable to everybody else, except for the funny costumes. He said, but we take that with great humor. And he said, they look after one another. And later that same morning, I saw that. There are some handicapped people that attend here, as we all know. And what a privilege to have those folks come to see us. And I found a bunch of little girls dressed as Tinkerbell or whatever behind these wheelchairs, voluntarily wheeling these people around and making sure they got breakfast and that their batteries were charged and various other things they needed. This is all voluntary stuff. These folks, Dragon Con folks, look after one another. They're very considerate, and I think they're damn good people. So there. Sincerely mean it when I say that it's my privilege to have been invited here. Don't you think so, Brian?
I think so. I definitely is your privilege. Although it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing when you gave that exact same speech at San Diego Comic-Con.
No, I didn't. You're wrong.
No, we've never been there. Those people suck.
No, that would be too much for me, I think, at my age. At Dragon Con is just about the right size. No, it's 4 sizes too huge, but that's okay too. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to run you by a little bit of the history of the James Randi Educational Foundation. And I must say we've a great number of people that we're very beholden to. Now, this is sort of name dropping, I know, it's shameless name dropping, but I just was discussing on another program the other day the great privilege that I've had personally of touching, getting to know, and having as excellent friends some of the greatest people of our day. Now, many of them have left us. And Carl Sagan, well, you don't know how much I miss Carl Sagan, and Johnny Carson as well, who was very helpful to us. I got to do 22 Carson shows over the years, and many of them were repeated on holidays or days when Johnny wasn't there. They would run favored repeats, and it was run, several of them were run many times that way. So there are many more times than 22 that I appeared on the Carson show. And Johnny used to do a peculiar thing. He always insisted on meeting people on camera. When they walked through the curtain, he would raise from the desk and he would shake their hand and sit down again. That's the way he wanted to meet people. He wanted to meet them on air, live, so to speak, although it was taped in advance, you probably know, so they could do any necessary editing later on. And the staff was rather puzzled. They gave me my dressing room. I'd go in there and I'd get dressed the way I should and such and look over a list of various things. And there would be on the door, and I'd answer the door, and Johnny was standing there, and over his shoulder were people going. They didn't understand because they knew that he didn't want to meet people before the show. He made an exception with me almost every time. And I'd invite him in, and he'd say, now, what do we want to mention here? What can I plug for you? What can I do for you? What's the best approach? I don't know that he did that with many other people, and I very much appreciated that, and I loved him for doing it. On one particular night, he said, we're going to show a very strong videotape tonight. He said, I hope that we can sort of take the edge off it, because it may upset some people. That's the videotape you're about to see.
Okay, I want to point out again for the people who just might have joined us. For the people who might just have tuned in, a little word of warning here. If you have a queasy stomach, the sight of blood bothers you, we suggest you don't watch this. This is James Randi, who's going to give you an idea of what the psychic surgeons in the Philippines actually do on people who go down there and pay good money. You all set?
Indeed.
All right, we have our patient. It's all yours.
Okay. Now, this is the time to look away if you need to, because it's going to get a little gory from now on. The psychic surgeons of the Philippines are, how are you feeling, Sandy, okay?
Everything's fine.
They're pretty heartless folks. They just don't much care for the feelings of people. They don't certainly care for their health at all. And, of course, they're not in any way trained to do this sort of thing. They just put on an act as if they are trained. Now, what you're about to see is a bare-handed operation which appears to take place by actually penetrating the body. Believe me, what you're seeing is strictly special effects. It's sleight of hand and nothing more. And this is the way it looks. Anything that gets down there, we don't get it on your trousers if we can help it. Let me see. This is terrible. It's getting worse and worse. Wait a second now. Oh, no, that doesn't come out. A bonus. That's a bit better. Just a second. Just 1 second now.
It may be better for you.
You don't feel any better? The strange thing is, after this operation is all over, now mind you folks, I want you to bear in mind, please, that people are showing this as if it were really serious, as if it actually did take place, and as if surgery were really performed. People do this, they go to the Philippines, they spend their money, and they frankly return home, in most cases, to die. It's a little bit funny to watch it perhaps, and you say, gee, I know it's play acting, but it's not play acting when they go, by the tens of thousands every year. Sanford, I want to thank you for being a wonderful volunteer. I think you deserve a round of applause for that. Thanks very much. I'll get you put it away. Thank you so much.
Sanford, thank you. Thanks, Thomas.
James Randi.
He said in that clip that there was a time when that was a big deal, psychic surgery in the Philippines. There were a lot of people in the Philippines who were doing exactly what you did on Johnny Carson, but pretending that it was for real. And there were some pretty high-profile cases of people who went to the Philippines to get their ailments cured, including Andy Kaufman and Peter Sellers. But I noticed that you have a particular style of skeptical activism. And it's probably from your background as an entertainer, as a magician, as an escape artist. You always place an emphasis on the showmanship, and as everybody can tell, there was that great joke in the middle of your performance on Johnny Carson about the part that doesn't come out. How important is showmanship to you in getting these kinds of serious messages across?
That's the lubrication. That's what does it. That's what sells people on something. That audience was quite uptight. Now, that was real blood, real human blood. It didn't belong to the man on the table, mind you. And I must tell you that Johnny Carson's secretary actually went to the nurse and had blood withdrawn in order to accommodate it, because stage blood always stains, and it leaves red dye on the flesh area. It's terrible. It's not good. There isn't a good stage blood that you can get commercially or any other way that I know of. So we just grab the nearest guy and say, here. just drawn right out of him. But this lady was brave enough to volunteer to go to the nurse and have the blood withdrawn. And that's why the blood looked so real, because it was real. The rest of it was chicken parts, by the way. I hate to tell you that, but that chicken had to die for some reason or other anyway. So I guess it was in a good cause.
It was old age, is what I heard.
Yes. We powered him to death.
We can put a man on the moon, but we can't make convincing fake blood.
Isn't that something? I mean, hard to say. Only God can make real blood. Yeah, sure. And I'm being facetious there. Probably yes. I must say that Carson was very, very cooperative on these things. He paid a great deal of, and he used to wait for me after I would pack up my props at the end of the evening. Or that was early in the evening. My job was done at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you see, so the processing could be done. And I would often, when I walked out of the stage entrance, I would find his white Corvette there. And as soon as I made the appearance, he'd roll down the window and all the smoke would come out, because he knew I didn't smoke. And he smoked constantly all through the show. You didn't know that. Most people didn't know that. But he had a cigarette lit by the prop man, always underneath the desk. It had an exhaust fan on it. And as soon as, and there's a scene coming up, as a matter of fact, where he looks at me and then looks away and starts doing this to look at the monitor. And as soon as the monitor switches to me, I know I better say something that'll last a bit of time, because he wants to get a couple of bucks. He would reach underneath the desk, take out the cigarette, put the cigarette back, blow the smoke down, and then be right back into the position. He was an image showman, after all, but he smoked constantly all the way through that show. And that's what it eventually did in him, as a matter of fact. And I've never forgiven the tobacco industry for all the harm that it has done in that respect. That's a criminal activity as far as I'm concerned. To deal with a villain who, I'm sure Brian will agree with me, this is a real villain. This is, the psychic surgeons of the Philippines, they're rather far away from it. But there's a man who infests our society still at this very moment. We thought we had put him out of business. And after Johnny's retirement, every couple of weeks I'd get a phone call at my office, and my secretary was always Johnny Carson's on the phone. I say, well, he's got to be someplace. He'd call me regularly, he'd say things like, I saw Popoff back on television. This is Peter Popoff, Reverend Peter Popoff, of course.
I'm a reverend too, by the way, mail order.
Me too. Yeah. Okay, hi, Reverend. And this guy Popoff was such a nasty, an evil man, and he still is. He's on the Black Entertainment Network now, and he is still doing the same thing he's been doing all these years, using a different modus now, because on the Carson Show, I exposed it completely. So what you're about to see next is a definitive exposure of Reverend Peter Popoff pretending that he is speaking to God.
Now, you got a small piece of tape here we're going to look at. Would you tell us what we're going to see here and how you did this and what it's supposed to show?
Well, we've researched Peter Popoff very, very well, and Mr. Popoff, Reverend Popoff, is not going to be very happy with this, I don't think. You're going to see, first of all, a short segment of tape as you would see it if you're watching it at home. This is what Popoff featured on his own program. You will apparently see a healing. Now, we went to Houston, Texas, and we discovered that the man was wearing, of all things, a hearing aid in his left ear, and a man who heals the deaf, Popoff himself.
Oh, I see.
And a man who heals the deaf and the blind isn't going to have much use for a hearing aid. One would think, if God is speaking to him, maybe someone else is speaking to him. So when we got to San Francisco, we put this fellow, Alec Jason, as an expert in electronics and a surveillance man, and he put a scanner, an electronic scanner on it, and we picked up something interesting. But first, let's look at the first cut of tape.
All right, this is the tape as you would see it if you were watching the show. Okay, watch the monitors.
Right.
Who is Harold? I just believe that God is going to burn those cataracts off of your eyes right now. 34788 Foothill Drive. I tell you, the angels of God are round about your home. Oh, just take those glasses off and put your eyes. If you've got cataracts, if you've got glaucoma, I want you just to put your hand over your eyes as I pray for these precious sister, you've got eye problems, to take your glasses off, lay your hands on your eyes. Here it comes to God is going to give these precious ones divine surgery. Right now, Jesus. That's it. That's the anointing of the Holy Ghost. Praise God. Praise God. I'll tell you, the anointing is flowing through this place. Thank you, Jesus.
Okay, now let's recap what we've seen here.
Right.
These two people who were there had not met Popoff
That's
before
right.
themselves.
Never spoken to them.
And yet he calls out his name, and then he called out a number or something?
He called out their address.
Their address.
And they're astonished to hear this, because
Naturally.
they didn't tell him. But what you don't know is that his wife has been touring around the audience, getting into conversation. Is Jesus going to heal you today? I see. Where do you live? This kind of thing. And they've filled out healing cards in advance of the program and handed them in. They're now backstage, and someone is sitting at a transmitter backstage. Let's see that same segment again. But now you will have the advantage of knowing what Peter Popoff is hearing in his left ear through a hearing aid.
Jerry Reed.
Is it Jerry?
Reed.
Reed? Is it Reed? Jerry Reed?
It's a woman. She's praying for her husband, Harold.
Who is Harold?
He's got cataracts.
I just believe that God is going to burn those cataracts off of your eyes right now.
They live at 34788 Foothill Drive.
34788 Foothill Drive. I tell you, the angels of God are round about your home. Just take those glasses off and put your eyes. If you've got cataracts,
She's got eye problems too.
You've got glaucoma, I want you just to put your hand over your eyes as I pray for these precious sister, you've got eye problems, to take your glasses off, lay your hands on your eyes. Here it comes to God is going to give these precious ones divine surgery. Right now, Jesus.
You know, that is, that's disturbing when you see it.
It is indeed.
You tend to laugh at it, and yet these people obviously are so impressed with what's going on.
Oh, they're absolutely impressed. You see people collapsed on the floor, tears running down their faces, believing that their kids with drug addiction are going to be healed now because he knew their name. He says he's talking to God, that God speaks directly to him because he's an anointed minister, and three things amaze me about that. First of all, it turns out that God's frequency, I didn't know he used radio, is 39.170 megahertz, and God is a woman, obviously, and sounds exactly like Popoff's wife, Elizabeth.
Has he seen this tape at all?
No, he does not know about this until this very moment.
Interesting. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
There's a couple of things to tell you about that. See, I laugh at a certain point there. I turn away and sort of smirk because I know something that was edited out of that tape. Now, I had gone to Johnny's producer, Fred DeCordova, in the afternoon, and I didn't expect the shot to be on that night, that very night. And I showed it to him, and Fred said, "Oh, we'll put this on tonight." And he reached for the phone, and I said, "Fred, don't tell John." He said, "Oh, I have to tell John. John doesn't like surprises." I said, "But Fred, just think of the expression on his face." He paused for a second and said, "Well, okay, but it's on your head." But it worked out very well because John had the right reaction, but John was very disturbed there. When he was doing this with his pencil, you notice that? That was a sign. Everybody who knew him knew that that was a sign he was very, very disturbed. He had tears in his eyes at that moment, folks. He was very disturbed over that. And when the tape was played, the second part of the tape, where you hear the voice of Mrs. Popoff coming out and giving the address and such, Johnny inadvertently, now there are three microphones, audience, John, myself, three different audio circuits, and they could edit them separately. They had to edit out what Johnny came up with at that point because he said, "Oh shit!" And they did this for the audience to quieten them down because you hear them go, "Whoop," sort of like that, and then they quietened down. But they had to edit that tape because he was so surprised. And at the end of the program, the Carter came over to the table, and the audience was filing out. And Fred said, "We're going to get letters." John looked up at him and said, "Yes, Fred, and you're going to answer them." So, next?
Yeah, well, the next we're going to talk about Uri Geller. Yeah, it's a necessary step on this progression in your life and your career. And before we get to that clip though, I wanted to just quickly ask you, when do you think that you made the transition from magician/escape artist to magician/escape artist/skeptic?
Oh, I think that was very early on, Brian, because as a kid, even starting to do the magic act, I did a lot of mentalism. And I was like a 16, 17-year-old kid at the time, and people had thrown at us were saying, oh, but you can't do that. That's real telepathy, isn't it? I said, no, it's all trickery. Believe me, it's all trickery. And they said, well, I don't understand that. That's got to be the real thing. Tell me how you did it. I said, no, those are the secrets of the trade. And so I realized that there were a lot of people out there that because they saw me doing things like that, especially if it was mentalism that seemed to be telepathic or precognitive or whatever, that they would naturally believe, since they'd seen a lot of publicity on this in the media, that it probably was real. And I tried to tell them that it wasn't. And along the way, I made up my mind that well into my magic career, I would always want to give talks about the so-called psychic and try to convince people that they were being fooled by magic tricks, not by actual mental powers and such. And when I became 60 years of age, I figured it's about time. So I gave up the illusions and such and went into the lecture field. But it was pretty well with me all the way along the way.
Well, why do you think that Uri Geller was such a right target? We're going to watch another clip from Johnny Carson that you're not actually in.
I'm not in it, no.
But you had a lot to do with. Why go after Uri Geller?
Well, because he, at that time, he was a sensation. There's no question of it. He took the world by storm because every media source wanted him right away, of course. And Carson invited him on the program as well. And I got a call from Johnny and said, we're going to have Geller on the show. He said, you come in town for that, can't you? I said, no, I can't, John, but I'll handle it from here. I was living in New Jersey at the time. The point was that during Geller's reign of terror on the media, I would get calls at my home in New Jersey. The phone would ring sometime in the afternoon. I'd pick up the phone and click. That's all I'd hear. But I got the cue pretty fast. I would rush to the television, turn it on, and get in on a major channel. And that meant that Geller was just coming up on TV. He wanted to make sure I was at home, you see, that I wasn't in the studio at the back. Because I had done that several times behind the screen, even, to learn his technology, you see. And so he didn't want to take a chance on that. So I said to Johnny and to his manager, I said, no, I'll do it right from here. Let me talk to the prop man. So I spoke to the prop man. And I said, now he's going to ask for spoons and little aluminum film cans to do his regular routine. He said, yeah. I said, now, what you do is you make sure that the spoons are all numbered by having numbers scratched on them, and you put them on a tray, and you tape them down to a tray, put it in the prop cupboard, and don't bring it up until the commercial's on, which is just before Geller, and bring that out onto the set and put it on the table. And he said, I gotcha. And I suggested something else too, because the film cans, they would put a heavy object in one of the film cans, and Geller would put it on a tray, and he would spin the tray or jar the table. And when you've got empty aluminum film cans there, one of them's not going to move much. See, and that's the one that has the heavy object in it. The other ones would just skid very easily. So I said, paint the bottom of them with rubber cement, but let it dry completely. That means they wouldn't stick down, but they wouldn't skid, you see. It's a skid-proof surface, believe me. And Geller tried this, and he saw that it was a fiasco. He wasn't going to be able to do it. So he got all complaining at the beginning. They said, no, we'll just put them on a triangle on the table then. But he was very unhappy about that. And you'll see just how unhappy he was. And so I said that I would not be on the program, but I stayed tuned at home. And oh boy, was this a lot of fun to watch. Okay, let's see.
And then, of course, there was Mr. Geller's appearance on The Tonight Show. I got a call after they booked him to appear.
Will you welcome, please, Uri Geller.
Johnny had been a magician himself and was skeptical. I was asked to help prevent any trickery.
Nice to see you.
Thanks.
We have only met...
This scares me.
This scares you? Well, we just got some things together here. And
I told them to provide their own props and not to let Geller or his people anywhere near them.
Also, one of our staff members did some drawings which have been sealed in an envelope, and I'd like you to take your own pace when you feel like you want to try anything.
Right.
Do you want to try that particular experiment first?
When I'll feel free.
When
Okay?
you Sure.
We'll start eliminating the ones that do not have the water.
All right, without touching them.
He is really suspicious, you know. I'm having a hard time with you.
Okay, I don't mean to be, Uri. I really don't.
Just keep looking. Okay, let me rest a little, all right?
All right.
You know, I'm surprised because before this program, your producer came and he read me at least 40 questions you're going to ask me.
Well, I can ask you all kinds of questions if you'd like me to ask you questions.
I have to have time. And,
Jark, we are back. Uri was telling me you don't feel what, strong tonight?
I don't
Is that?
feel strong. It's not all tonight. Right now I'm feeling being pressed and then I can't...
Well, I'm not trying to press you. I really not.
No, you're only telling me, well, will you try that or that?
Well, I thought that was the idea of no, I'm not trying to put you down.
You might think that a failure like that, it's an abject failure, of course, would slow Geller down. It didn't make any difference at all because all the media people wanted him. I don't care if he's real, as long as he's pretending to be a psychic, that's fine with me. The media doesn't give a damn, folks. All they want is a story. They want something who's going to do 4 to 6 minutes on the evening newscast, or they want something that's going to do 2 columns in the newspaper. They don't give a damn whether these people are real, the preachers or any of the others. They just don't care. And the media, I can't say the media can't be trusted. They treated me very well too, I must admit. But the point is, their bottom line is the dollar. And if it pays off, they will do it, and they don't care whether they misinform the public or not. Barbara Walters and I have had quite a relationship over the years. We're very good friends. We always are glad to see one another and such. That's infrequent these days, I must say, since I live in Florida. And Barbara, on one particular occasion here, she challenged me after Geller had appeared on the program. Now, one of Geller's favorite tricks was to reproduce a drawing that somebody had made. It was always supposed to be remote from him, but it was always made in the same dressing room with a lot of mirrors around. Everybody else out of the room, the person would make a drawing, and Geller would stand there like this with his hands covering his eyes. Yeah, sure. And looking at the mirror, and he was, now they were asked to make a big drawing on a big piece of paper, you see. And you can follow the action of the hand very easily. That's not too difficult to do. And if it didn't work, if he didn't see it, he'd say, no, make another one. Make it different. Make it a little simpler or whatever, until he got to the point where he could see one of them. That was the way he did the concealed drawing trick. It would then be sealed in an envelope, and many envelopes in some cases, so that appeared more secure. He already knew what it was, so he could put it in 40 envelopes. It wouldn't make any difference. But then they would bring it out on the set as if he had never seen it before. And he would look at it and say, oh my, so many envelopes, as if he had never seen it, you see. That implies that. Now, Barbara was urged by her producer, not a winsome lady, let's put it that way. She didn't like me at all, and she was crazy about Geller. And she was challenged by her producer to have me do it. And I was in the company of Mark Wilson and of Doug Henning, you recognize on the screen, the late Doug Henning, also a very good friend of mine, of course, as is Mark Wilson still. And you're going to see Barbara, I almost said Barbara Wawa, that's what I always refer to as Barbara Wawa. But Barbara is going to challenge me to reproduce a drawing. And this is the way it's going to look.
Uri, the Uri Geller
we're going to show a tape. Okay, very
can
good.
we show that? This is where he read my mind and reproduced a picture that only I had.
Okay, just a second, look at me. Visualize everything that you drew once more. I'm going to show what I got. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But it really came very strong in. I'll tell you what first I thought it was and what it comes to appear now. First I thought there were two churches with peaks on, or two houses. Then it turned to a letter M, and then it could be two mountains with a round thing on, or two people.
Can I show?
Yeah, I'd like to. Am I wrong?
You're right.
I'm right. Good. That's what I got.
The letter M, if you got a letter M, it may not be because of that, but because my drawing is a drawing similar to one that my child does. It's a mother and child.
Oh, that's...
This is it. We have not had this envelope out of our sight. Randy has in no way been close to it. The closest you've been to it, to my knowledge, is right now. Reproduce
Would you
it.
put it back in the book? I want to make sure that it is under good control.
I believe. I can't.
All right, Barbara, I'm going to ask you to concentrate on what's drawn inside
What's
there.
the point of concentrating? I know now.
Watch this, Wilson. I may surprise you.
Surprise me.
May surprise everybody. Are you concentrating on what you drew in there? I don't want you to see the end of the pen move. You may look and say, no, that doesn't look quite right.
Yes, because song begins. And I hear a violin.
It's tragic. I'm a very bad artist. You'll have to pardon me, Barbara, but all right, I've made what I believe to be an impression of it. Now, it can't be altered in any way. Would you be kind enough to open up the envelope and let's see how right I was? Oh, like Uri says, thanks God, I hope I'm right on this. That's the way he says it, you know. Well, open it up and show it to the camera, if you'd be so kind.
Where's the canvas? Here's a camera.
Is that a house?
It's a little, well, I don't draw so well. It's a little house and a sun, and here's a little person. A house, that's the house, that's the sun, and that's a little person.
Well, you'll pardon me for being a very bad artist, Barbara, but I didn't get the sun at all. I got the little person, but I got the little person inside the house and the smoke coming out to the top here. That's all we could get out of it. This...
Thanks God you got it.
Thanks God I got this. Yes. Yes, we got the house at the...
You're going to debunk this man whom everybody believes, you have to tell us how you do it.
I'm going to add the sun here to make my results a little bit better. How about that, folks?
Randy.
Now, let me do an explanation. We found it not possible to rewind the tape to that particular spot and show it to you again, where I started to say, watch me carefully. Now, the way I did this was something that Mark Wilson and Doug Henning they had no idea how I did it. They were sitting right there, they watched me, but they didn't catch me at it. And if you were to watch that again, and it's on YouTube, you can find it on YouTube, look up Barbara Walters and James Randi, and you'll find it on YouTube. It's someplace in there. I had to improvise at the last minute. So what I did was, after I capped up the pen and such, I had another pen which I took and stuck in my belt like this. You can see it on camera. Stuck it in my belt. So the active end is up here, and I took the envelope. This would be the envelope here, you see, and I just held it there. I looked at the envelope. There was a little bit of conversation that you missed on there at the same time. And she held it up to the light, and she said, you can't see through it. I said, now take off the outside envelope. Can you see through that? That's when I did see through the envelope, you see, because it was quite transparent. And as soon as I saw that, I started to move the envelope relative, or to, pardon me, the piece of paper relative to the pen that was sticking out of my belt. And all I did was stick it back in my belt. It's probably in a pair of trousers someplace that I haven't. But that was the way the trick was done. And Doug Henning and Mark Wilson were both flabbergasted. They had no idea, and I had done it right in front of them. Great magicians, you see. No, they are. They're two of the top magicians in the world. Literally. Doug is no longer with us, unfortunately, but he was a star, and so was Mark Wilson. Mark Wilson still is a star, even though retired at this age. But that's the way I did that particular trick, and the magicians at home were flummoxed completely. Now, we used to have a thing we do in the trade called a nail writer. It's a little piece of lead that clips on your finger. So when you take it, you pretend to draw something like that, and then you take the paper and hold it here, and you're doing the drawing with your thumb. It's pretty crude, usually, but you can do it. This is now called, in the trade, a belly writer, instead of a thumb writer, you see. And it's my invention, and I claim that I should have a patent on it. Don't you think?
Well, we're quickly running out of time here, but the reason that we've shown you all these clips is to show you the basis for the James Randi Educational Foundation. It's this work that Randy did on television, in your books, in your lectures for over the years that eventually led to where we are today. Started the James Randi Educational Foundation some embarrassing number of years ago.
Yes.
Don't want to date anyone. And our flagship, obviously, at the JREF is the $1 Million Challenge. The JREF has $1 million available to anyone who can prove any paranormal claim under controlled conditions. So if someone has a testable claim, we can test it. And if they pass the test, then they win $1 million.
I don't see a lineup outside the hotel. Did you notice that?
And from that, though, we've expanded. Now the JREF, we offer grants to educators to teach critical thinking at all grade levels, high school, elementary school, college. We also offer grants to skeptical organizations around the world for their projects. There are skeptic camps that are thrown to educate the public about these kind of issues all over the place. We co-sponsor conferences and things like that. We offer scholarships to students who demonstrate an interest in critical thinking and the scientific method. We run a blog with constantly updated new information on every new topic that comes up, another rubber duck that floats to the surface every couple of days at randy.org. We make videos. The show that Randy and I make together for YouTube is on the Randi Foundation YouTube channel. We make educational modules, curriculum for the classroom, which you can download for free from our website in PDF form, on fun topics like dowsing and astrology and the Cottingley fairies and ESP that not just... Right. They don't just debunk things, they teach kids how to form experiments, how to come to their own conclusions and use the scientific method for themselves.
Learn for themselves. That's the most important way people can learn, particularly kids.
Yeah, and so if anybody wants to find out more about that, you can come to the JREF table. It's on the second floor of the Hilton, next to the Walk of Fame. So if you're snubbed by Lou Ferrigno, we're your second option, I guess. Come by the table and you can learn about our conferences, you can learn about our cruise we're going on in December to the Mayan ruins. If you want to hang out on the high seas and go to Belize with Randy, you can do that. So, all of that being said, there are still people who say that things like this, the things that we tackle, psychics, charlatans, alternative medicine, ghosts, chupacabra, Bigfoot, all these things that skeptics are involved in, that these things are trivial compared to some of the more visible wrongs being done in the world. I mean, there are people being killed in countries, there are wars going on, there's disease, all these different things. Why do we do this? Why isn't this a trivial concern and a trivial pursuit?
It's mostly because of the young people. We have to teach our young people to be critical thinkers, to be honest with themselves, to not depend on every advertisement, everything that the media is going to push down their throats in order to make a dollar. Let's teach our kids to think critically. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm merely saying teach them to think critically, and then they'll decide whether or not I'm right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here.